People always talk about work-life balance. It's important to understand the role that leaders play in all of this. If you or your team are trying to balance all the piles and piles of things you need to do, along with balancing life outside of work, let's talk about that today. Work-life balance is important to all levels of leadership. It's those line managers are the ones that are representing the company to all the teams. So work-life balance really has to be part of the company culture. But at the very least, you have to cultivate this in your team culture. When it comes to work-life balance, the company policies are just as important as the signals we send as leaders of the organization. The most important and simplest way to signal this is to provide a very supportive environment for your employees. People are emotional and life happens. It's really important for us to understand that things like that happen. How are you going to be supportive of your teams when life gets in the way? If they have a doctor's appointment, if somebody gets married, gets divorced, all these things are important to the lives of our teams. But if we don't make space for them to do these things outside of work and balance their lives, it really takes a toll on your organizational health and the morale of your teams. What do you do when people get sick or they have children, they have pets, things happen in their lives? So we need to be empathetic and we have to be compassionate as leaders because that happens to us too, right? So if you want to create an environment that is fostering and appreciates and makes space for that, let people handle their life and get what they need done. This is all helpful to ensure teams understand that work doesn't conflict with life and life doesn't have to conflict with work. That's the most important piece of really creating an environment that fosters work-life balance. These next steps are more tactical, so we'll go over like 3 quick ways for you to signal or not healthy work-life balance. The first tactic, emailing or messaging outside of regular work hours. If leaders are emailing at all hours of the night and in the morning, imagine the expectation you're setting for everybody else that's receiving those emails or messages, right? And I understand, the world is a global network now. Like all these companies are global. They're on the clock 24/7. But that doesn't mean you need to be sending out things all hours of the night, all hours of the morning. That's really sending a bad signal and setting expectations for your teams that they have to follow suit. That's not the example you want to be for your team. There really shouldn't be anything that can't wait till reasonable hours. Even if you're trying to send it to Asia or Europe or South America, there's nothing urgent that can't wait till the morning. And if there is, those should be the exceptions. That shouldn't be the way you just practice business. As everything's a fire, I don't think that's true in all businesses, right? So you need to understand that if you send those signals, that's a bad look for your team. But then you're also saying like, hey, all these things are so important that they can't wait until the morning, which in reality, if the morning is like 8 to 10 hours away, you tell me, is it really that important? As opposed to 100 people seeing you email everybody at 11:30 at night? And you should always create like an emergency channel if you need. So for me, that's text. But I make it crystal clear with my teams that they're not to text me between, 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. unless it's an absolute emergency. And there are those exceptions, right? So if something needs to go live or something like that, and if something went wrong, obviously, that's an exception. But that happens, 3-4 times a year. That shouldn't be happening 3 or 4 times a week. And part of that is you shouldn't be hiding the work either, right? I know all you set your schedule to send at 8 a.m. How does that look when all of a sudden your team comes into work, then boom, 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 they look at their inbox, all their messages right at 8 a.m. come from their leader. Like that's one thing too. And like I mentioned earlier, don't hide the work. Don't pretend you're not working when you're actually working, because people can see right through that. And now the expectation you're setting is the leader expects you to work and you have to hide it and not let everybody know that you're working. So that's an even worse signal to send than just sending emails late at night. Number 2 is actually really being unplugged when you're on vacation or taking a day off. Now I know this is a hard one for some people, but you really have to stay unplugged. It's another signal that you're setting. If you told your team, oh, I'm going to be in Mexico or Hawaii or the Caribbean for a week, but then you're answering emails, taking phone calls, taking VC meetings, things like that, that's a horrible signal to send. You want to make sure you are completely unplugged and off grid for a couple reasons. One, it's rest and relaxation. Your body, your mind, they all need to recover. I even actually tell my teams, turn off your work notifications on your cell phone. Don't even think about bringing your laptop, and really just enjoy your time and relax. Because if you start to do that on vacation, then your teams will start to bring their things on vacation, and that's just not a healthy environment. Nobody really gets to relax, refresh, and come in. And if you don't refresh on your vacations, your team's going to come back more exhausted than when they left. And that's not what you want. You want them to come back refreshed so they have the best ideas. They come back, do their best work. So make sure you set that example of staying unplugged. Don't be sending those emails when you're sitting on the beach when you should have a drink in your hand. And number 3, super tactical, but it relates to the next one, actually take days off. Actually go to the doctor. Actually do the things, DMV, whatever. Do these things and let your teams see you do them. It's okay. It's okay for you to leave the office early sometimes, because that actually sends a signal that to your team, if you need to handle something outside of work, it's okay for you to leave. If the rest of the office closes at 5, what's it gonna hurt if you leave at 3 p.m. once or twice a month, right? It's okay to do that. It actually is healthy for you and healthy for your team. And even if you want to take a vacation, you don't want to go anywhere, take a staycation, but still unplug. The rule still stands, like I said earlier, get your rest, get your relaxation, come back ready to rock. And imagine, I think we've all had them, those leaders that, I don't call them leaders because they're more maybe just managers, but they don't take time off. They're always in the office. They're first one in, last one out. Maybe that's good if you're in sports, because everyone always talks about, oh yeah, he was the last one in the building, or the first one in the building and last one out. Should not apply to work. Because the signal that you're sending is, if you want to be successful in this company, you need to be the first one in the building. You need to be the last one out. You can never take a vacation. Is that the expectation you want to set for your teams? So be mindful that all these teams, all these people, they want to aspire to you. You're their leader. They look up to you. You're their mentor. So the expectations that you're setting for them, that's what they're going to follow. So if you're doing all these things that reinforce this negative message of you need to work harder, longer, not take vacations, and all those things, that's not healthy. Don't send those signals to your team, please. And I know there's things you need to do. Don't you ever need to go to the doctor? Or get your license? Or what else do you do at work? Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. All those things I know you do. So let them see you do it. Remember, you want your teams to feel safe at work. You want them to feel like they can actually really balance their jobs with their life. And what they'll do is they'll reward you with their best work and loyalty if you just show them that support and foster a positive environment for them. Now, I have to say it again, don't get me wrong. I know there's times when work piles up. It happens to me all the time, those weeks where you feel like you can't get caught up. But make sure that those are the exceptions. That should be happening, a few times a year, versus the opposite of I get to go home a few times a year. Make sure that they're balancing it that way, because that's the way you should lead a team. Everyone will rally together when there's work to get done. But if it's always like that, there's always work to get done, people will get tired of rallying and they'll just be tired overall and burnt out. So be conscious of the signals that you're sending. Remember, like I said earlier, you're their leader, you're their mentor. They aspire to be you. So set a good example. Let them know what it's like to balance work and life. At the end of the day, what do you want them to take away from you? Do you want them to know you as the leader that has no life outside of work and that spends 80 hours a week inside the office? Or the leader that's able to be effective and still maintain a work-life balance and inspire them? I know who I try to be, so be what you need them to be. All right, that being said, I will see you next time. Bye.